Let's put the women and children to bed and go looking for dinner. Jon Rothstein here on Inside College Basketball Now. We want to remind you to subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on both Apple and Spotify. We want to be your Bible for the college basketball season and beyond. We are the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. As we have been doing, we are rolling out all sorts of preseason content for the 25-26 college basketball season. It is one of my favorite things to do in life. If you are asking me right now, my favorite things to do in life, I would probably say create college basketball content, then spend time with my family, and then drink Peroni. Hopefully my family is not subscribing to this show because they know and they tell me every single day I'm not that important. Anyway, as we continue with our content here, today's show is going to focus on a little bit more than a breakout player. Now, what does that mean? I have identified 15 players who I think will not just break out, but will become household names and stars in college basketball during the 25-26 college basketball season. These are in no particular order, so we're going to run through them 1 through 15, but they are not being ranked in terms of impact or anything like that. We are going to start, and it's a good place to start when you're talking college basketball, with Isaiah Evans at Duke. Now, last year, there were pockets in time where Isaiah Evans exploded like a volcano. And last year, there were times where Isaiah Evans looked like somebody who could blossom into one of the best players in the sport. But it wasn't the right time last year for Isaiah Evans to emerge into that role for Duke because you had Con Knippel and you had Tyrese Proctor logging so many minutes on the perimeter and on the wing for Duke. That is no longer the case in Durham. And you have to remember last year, there was a time late in the season where Tyrese Proctor was out of the lineup for multiple games. During that 4-game stretch where Isaiah Evans got extended minutes, with Tyrese Proctor out of the lineup, Evans averaged over 17 points per game. This guy is going to be a potential star in Durham. This guy is going to be somebody who can not just extend the defense, but also show other facets of his game, using his length to be a great defender, using his length to be somebody who can distort things for the opponent. And if you remember, we had John Shire on this podcast over the summer, and he highlighted how Isaiah Evans now has an opportunity to be an all-around player. I think if you're looking at Duke this season, obviously the focal point is going to be Cam Boozer, the talented freshman who is likely going to be a preseason All-American and one of the best players in the country. But if you're taking inventory of Duke's roster, and there's Caleb Foster and Isaiah Evans coming back, and there's other pieces as well coming back with Pat Gongba, with Malik Brown, I think you can say without question that as of today, the leading favorite to be Duke's second leading scorer during the 25-26 season behind Cam Boozer is unequivocally Isaiah Evans. Now, another player on this list who also plays for a blue blood program who is going to be, I think, an absolute star this season is Eric Dailey Jr. from UCLA. Eric Dailey last year was in his first year in UCLA's program and had a really, really good year and is really, really tailor-made for the coach that he plays for in Mick Cronin. He's hard-nosed. He's a worker. He plays with great effort. He's a blue-collar guy. But Eric Dailey now is ready to be a real difference maker for UCLA. Last year, in games where Eric Dailey scored in double figures, UCLA was 16-2. He was an X factor in Westwood. But one of the reasons why I like Eric Dailey so much this year, not just for what he did last year, and he showed great promise last year, is because of the way he approaches the game. When I was in Westwood during the preseason, this guy has completely changed his body. He's leaner. You talk to the UCLA staff, they tell you all he does is work on his outside shooting. He's going to slide from the 4 to the 3 this year, giving UCLA a bigger lineup. But this is a guy who, when you're around him and you talk to his coaches and you see the work he puts in and you see what he does to his body, Eric Dailey is not a guy that's going to fail. And beyond all those great attributes, the work ethic, the way he approaches his diet, the way he approaches his conditioning, for all that Eric Dailey showed last year, and there was a lot of promise, he is playing with one of, if not the, elite table setters in the sport in New Mexico transfer Donovan Dent, who is an All-American. So now all of a sudden, Eric Dailey's life on offense is going to get that much easier because he's playing with a table setter like Donovan Dent. The supporting cast for UCLA is going to benefit big time from the addition of Dent. Eric Dailey is a major part of that. He is going to have an all Big Ten caliber season for UCLA. Now, another guy that's going to have an all conference caliber season is Christian Anderson for Texas Tech, somebody who was a major part of last year's team for the Red Raiders, who went all the way to the Elite Eight and had that heartbreaking defeat against Florida in the regional final. But he also had a major hand in the Red Raiders getting to that point. 22 in the Elite Eight in the Sweet 16 against Arkansas. And Christian Anderson, now you have to look at things for Texas Tech and the makeup of that roster. He's somebody who, again, is going to be in a much more pronounced role. Think about the players who are no longer in Texas Tech program, even though you have JT Toppin back. Darian Williams is at NC State. Chance McMillan is no longer on Texas Tech's roster. There are shots to be had on offense for Christian Anderson. He is not just going to fade into the shadows like he might have done at times last year. But again, Christian Anderson, 22 in the Sweet 16 against Arkansas, now entering the season, the second option on offense behind JT Toppin for a Texas Tech team that's going to start the season in the top 10, and again looks to be in line to be a very high seed in the 2026 NCAA tournament under Grant McCaslin. Christian Anderson will not start this season, in my opinion, as an all Big 12 first-team caliber player, but it wouldn't shock me if he ended there. And one thing I want to talk about, I hate more than anything when we're doing all these early season awards, and especially when it happens later in the year, when more than 5 players are on all-conference preseason or end-of-season teams. It is absolutely ridiculous. You play with 5 players on the court in basketball. Keep 5 players on those preseason or after the season all-conference teams. The next player on our list of 15 players who will become stars during the 25-26 season is Chase Ross from Marquette. Over the past 3 seasons, when Chase Ross has scored in double figures, Marquette's record is a whopping 27-5. But here's the difference now for Chase Ross. He is not an ancillary piece to this puzzle. He is the main guy. And if you look at what Marquette lost after last season, Cam Jones, David Joplin, Stevie Mitchell, Chase Ross is the returning player on Marquette's roster that is most suited to step into an all Big East caliber role. Now, is he up to it? He has to be for Marquette to remain Marquette under Shaka Smart. And if you look at Marquette under Shaka Smart, and you look at this team, and you look at this program, it's been 4 years, and it's been 4 NCAA tournament appearances. The first year, Marquette lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament to North Carolina. The second year, Marquette lost in the second round of the NCAA tournament to Michigan State. The next year, Marquette lost to NC State in the Sweet 16. And then this year, in 2025, Marquette lost to New Mexico. But the common theme in all of that, Marquette, in its 4 years under Shaka Smart, has been single-digit seeds in the NCAA tournament. The only way that's happening again in Milwaukee is if Chase Ross balls out. And again, Chase Ross, when he has played well in his career, he has taken Marquette with him. He needs to be a consistent double-figure score if Marquette is going to have any chance of remaining in the conversation with St. John's, UConn, and Creighton in the Big East. Next on the list of 15 players who could become stars or who will become stars in the 25-26 season, we're going to the SEC with Labaron Philon from Alabama. Now, a year ago, when I was talking to Alabama's staff about who was standing out during the preseason, because you knew Alabama was going to have a great team. You knew about Mark Sears. You knew about Cliff Amori. Every coach said Labaron Philon. And Philon was terrific as a freshman. Double-figure scorer, obviously gave a great defensive presence, big guard, strong guard, was a major part of that Alabama team that went to the Elite Eight and lost to Duke. But it was not his show. It was, and I did Alabama's games in the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament when they beat Robert Morris and St. Mary's. It wasn't his team. It was Mark Sears' team, as it should have been. But now you are seeing a bit of a changing of the guard in terms of Alabama's perimeter. Now you have Labaron Philon and Aiden Holloway. Now all of a sudden, there's no Grant Nelson and Cliff Amori up front. Alabama needs to find a new face of its program for the 25-26 season, and the face of that program is Labaron Philon. A lot of people thought he was cemented to stay in the 2026 NBA draft, and late on deadline day, Labaron Philon made the announcement that he would return to Tuscaloosa for his sophomore season. And that announcement gives Nate Oates and gives Alabama, again, more than a puncher's chance to remain in the top tier of the SEC. Next on the list, we're going to go with a team that Alabama will play on the first Saturday of the season, November 8th at Madison Square Garden. And that's Ian Jaxon for St. John's, spent last year at North Carolina. Ian Jaxon has all-American caliber talent. Ian Jaxon is the type of player that falls out of bed and gets 8 to 10 points. He is an effortless offensive player that can score in bunches. UCLA played North Carolina last year in the CBS Sports Classic. Carolina came back and won the game. A major reason why, Ian Jackson's ability to seamlessly generate offense. Ian Jaxon will be playing for Rick Pitino. Ian Jaxon will be playing for a program in St. John's, and I'm not saying they have the best team, but if you look man for man, 1 through 6, on any roster in college basketball, who is a better roster than St. John's? Nobody. Ian Jaxon, Joe Zonsanin, Osiah Sellers, Bryce Hopkins, Zuby Ejiofor, Dylan Mitchell. And Ian Jackson's a major part of that. Now, Rick Pitino has publicly stated that St. John's is not going to play with a traditional point guard this year, but they are going to obviously have Ian Jaxon with the ball regularly. And when this guy had high usage last year, it reflected incredibly positive for North Carolina where it matters most, and that's the one-loss column. Last year, when Ian Jaxon logged 25 minutes or more, he averaged 18 points per game as a freshman for North Carolina. And now he's coming to New York City. Now he's coming to Madison Square Garden. It's going to be really interesting to see how all the pieces for St. John's fit. But make no mistake about it, and I've said this time and time again, this is a golden era for St. John's basketball. This is a program that up until last year had not won an NCAA tournament game since 2000. And now you have a team coached by Rick Pitino, who is right now the steward of the program that has the best roster in college basketball. And no player on St. John's roster has a higher ceiling than Ian Jaxon in terms of long-term ability. None. When he got 25 minutes or more last year at Carolina, he averaged 18 points per game. Now he's making the jump from his freshman to his sophomore year, and he's playing at Madison Square Garden. It's going to be like kerosene on a fire when Bruce Willis did it at the end of Die Hard 2 when he blew up Colonel Stewart and Ramon Esperanza at Dulles International Airport. That's what's going to be like when Ian Jaxon takes over Madison Square Garden. Next on our list is Tahaad Pettiford from Auburn. Auburn returned a great deal of personnel last year, which anchored the Final Four run for the second time in Bruce Pearl's tenure. That is not the case this year. The only real returning player of significance for Auburn is Tahaad Pettiford, a player, though, we have to note, averaged over 15 points per game in the 5 games that he played in the 2025 NCAA tournament. He'll get the keys to the car for Bruce Pearl. He'll be a major, major factor for Auburn. He'll be an all-SEC first-team caliber player. And again, Tahaad Pettiford is going to have to be the player that he was in the 2025 NCAA tournament and more if we're going to see Auburn again be a force in the SEC. But make no mistake about it, when you look at the team Auburn had against Florida in the Final Four and the team it has now, it's completely different. Denver Jones is gone. Jani Broome is gone. Dylan Cardwell's gone. Myles Kelly is gone. All those guys are out. Tahaad Pettiford's in. Would not shock me if Tahaad Pettiford leads the SEC in scoring during the 25-26 season. Next on the list, Seth Trimble from North Carolina, a player I love. He's a two-way player. He had a nice year last season, about 11 points and 5 rebounds a game. But now when you look at the roster for Hubert Davis, this is the guy that comes back. This is the guy that comes back with pedigree, because if you're looking at North Carolina and you're looking at what the roster and the lineup could look like, you were evaluating players, Kyan Evans from Colorado State, Henry Visar from Arizona, Jaron Stevenson from Alabama, Luka Bogovic from obviously overseas, that weren't on North Carolina's roster last year. The best teams in college basketball have players back. Seth Trimble is going to have to be an anchor for North Carolina. I had him as an all-ACC preseason first-team caliber selection. I think he's a player that, if the Tar Heels are good, will star for North Carolina in 25-26. Myles Byrd from San Diego State is next. He heavily considered staying in the NBA draft in May, but Myles Byrd decided to return to Southern California, where he will be firmly in the mix for Mountain West Player of the Year honors, and he joins a San Diego State team that is also going to get Reese Waters back from a foot injury that didn't allow him to play at all last season. So last year, we had the Myles Byrd, who was a really, really good player in the Mountain West, but he didn't have somebody to take some pressure off him. Now Reese Waters does that. Louisiana Tech transfer Sean Newman, who was third in the country in assists, is another player that should allow Myles Byrd to have higher percentage looks. Magoon Guath is also back for San Diego State. I think now, if you're saying before the season, put one player above the rest for Mountain West Player of the Year honors, my pick would be Myles Byrd. And I think San Diego State, and I've said this on this show, and I'm going to keep saying it, San Diego State will be firmly in the mix for the label to be the best non-power conference team in basketball during the 25-26 season. Myles Byrd's a big reason why. We're going to go to the SEC right now for Josh Hubbard at Mississippi State. Now, the diehards know what Josh Hubbard has done during his first 2 years of college basketball. He's like a Pez dispenser for 15 to 20-point games. He is an effortless scorer. He's averaged 18 points per game. But when people talk about the SEC and they talk about the best guards in the sport in that conference, you're not hearing his name really at the vernacular of SEC fans. Just doesn't happen. They talk about Labaron Philon, as they should. They talk about Tahaad Pettiford, as they should. They talk about Otego-Away. They're going to talk about Jacoby Gillespie because now he's at Tennessee. You don't hear that with Josh Hubbard. If Mississippi State gets back to the NCAA tournament again under Chris Jans. He has went his first 3 years in Starkville. It will be because of Josh Hubbard. And Mississippi State, very, very quietly, has a potentially explosive backcourt with Hubbard and Jaden Epps, who transferred from Georgetown. 2 players, again, who can go off for 20 to 25 points each and every time they take the floor. Each and every time. Josh Hubbard is a bucket getter. He is a player, again, who a lot of people don't look at as maybe an all-SEC first-team preseason guy, but he could find his way there. I think now, because there's so many good teams in this league, and you have 16 teams and you have so many good players, if we're being fair and we're calling it a 5-team preseason all-conference team for the SEC, you have to have, in my opinion, Otego away on there. You have to have somebody from Florida. I put 2 players on. I put Boogie Fland, who transferred from Arkansas, and I put Alex Condon. You got to have Jacoby Gillespie, and you got to have Tahaad Pettiford. It's hard. It's hard if you're going with 5 players, but Hubbard is a player, again, who, if Mississippi State's going to be in play for a 4th NCAA tournament bid under Chris Jans, he's going to be close to a 20-point-per-game scorer. Now, the next player is from a team that Michigan State played, is a team that Mississippi State played 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament, and that's Jaxon Kohler at Michigan State. And if you're looking now, and we've talked to Tom Izzo about this on the show, if you're looking right now at the big question surrounding Michigan State entering 25-26, it's where are the Spartans going to get consistent offense from? Because you look at Michigan State's team, Jeremy Fears is obviously the power point guard that was made to play for Tom Izzo. Carson Cooper is back at center. Cohen Carr is back as obviously one of the best athletes in the sport. But you lose Jace Richardson and you lose Jaden Aiken, so you wonder, where is the offense going to come from the Spartans? A good place to look is Jaxon Kohler. This is somebody, again, who was Michigan State's best player when the Spartans lost in the Elite Eight in Atlanta to Auburn, had 17 and 11 against the Tigers, and was clearly somebody who, if his usage and the touches he got went up, looks like a guy that can produce and be an all Big Ten caliber player. I was really impressed by Kohler against Auburn. I think you're going to be more impressed by him this season. He is somebody who, again, it wouldn't shock me if this year he leads Michigan State in both scoring and rebounding. If you're looking for a Big Ten stock to buy in 25-26, buy Jaxon Kohler. Now, Michigan State is going to play an exhibition game against UConn in October, and one of the stars for UConn is going to be Solo Ball. And Solo Ball looks like to me that he is the next one to blossom under Dan Hurley. A year ago, Dan Hurley talked about Solo Ball making a big jump from his freshman to sophomore season. I think considering what Solo Ball did last year, he's kind of in the witness protection program to most of America. How many players who make 99 three-point shots and shoot about 40 or so from 3 are being slept on? That's what Solo Ball did last year. And I think because UConn's point guard play was so below the standard last year, and because UConn as a program, part of it was the point guard play, part of it was Liam McNeely was out for a month in the middle of the season, because UConn did not live up to, obviously, the play that they showed in 23 and 24, Solo Ball doesn't get the attention that he should have gotten. Solo Ball is going to be an all Big East first-team caliber player in 25-26. And a big thing you look at is returning personnel. UConn's got Solo Ball back. UConn's got Alex Caravan back. UConn's got Taris Reed back. UConn's got Jalen Stewart back. And now Ball is going to play alongside Braylon Mullins, a 5-star freshman that's going to step in for Liam McNeely, and an upgraded point guard in Georgia transfer Silas Demery. Silas Demery Jr. should allow Solo Ball to get better looks, and UConn as a whole, by being a better team, a deeper team, should be in a position where it follows the lefty who, again, in my opinion, has some Coutinho Mobley in his game. He's a big-time offensive talent. He will be a major cog in Dan Hurley's quest to go to the Final Four for the third time in 4 seasons. Another guy who made a lot of threes last year as a freshman is Jon Mobley from Ohio State. He is next up on this list. I was talking to Ohio State staff recently, and they were going on and on and on about how much they love their perimeter. Bruce Thornton back as a senior. Obviously, Devin Royal sliding now to the small forward spot. But a big reason is Jon Mobley. He came into college basketball. He averaged in double figures. He made 77 threes. And now you are looking at him as a sophomore who has already produced as a freshman. He's going to be an all Big Ten caliber player in 25-26. And Ohio State should also be a better team than it was a year ago in its first season under Jake Diebler. They've rectified some things up front via the transfer portal. Ohio State is also going to be in a scenario, too, in my opinion, where it's going to benefit from having one of the great veteran guards that we have in the sport in Bruce Thornton. Jon Mobley will also be a big part of that. Now, the next guy on this list, and we're down to 2. There's only 2 remaining names on this list, is going to be part of a potential revival for a blue blood program or close to a blue blood program that has not played in the NCAA tournament since 2021, and that's Donnie Freeman at Syracuse. Last year, Donnie Freeman missed approximately half of the season due to a foot injury. But when he is healthy and he is in a situation where he's getting minutes, he looks like he has the ability to be one of the best players in the ACC. He had 5 games last season as a true freshman where he got at least 15 and 10. Now, I think what you have to look at, too, for Donnie Freeman is playing with a better supporting cast, and that is directly related to Georgia Tech transfer Nate George, who I think is going to take immense pressure, not just off Donnie Freeman, but off J.J. Starling. But I was at a Syracuse practice last year, and I was at a Syracuse practice, every year because I make the trip up every year. And Donnie Freeman was the guy right away where they start doing drills. You point out your finger and you say, who's that? That's what Donnie Freeman can do in the gym. He can make people turn their heads. I look at Syracuse, and I see a program right now that has 3 potential all-ACC caliber players. Nate George, J.J. Starling, and Donnie Freeman. And when you think back when Syracuse was Syracuse in the old Big East, and they had those big active front court players who could produce and run and jump, CJ Fair, Bai Musakeda, all those guys, Donnie Freeman is cut from a similar cloth. He looks like a prototypical active Syracuse big that was there under Jim Boeheim, Rick Jaxon, all those guys. And if Syracuse can be one of the more improved teams in the sport, Donnie Freeman's going to have a major hand in that. The final player on our list of 15 players who will become stars during the 25-26 season is John Blackwell from Wisconsin. Now, John Blackwell was an absolutely incredible find a couple of years ago by Greg Gard and the Wisconsin staff. And John Blackwell, in his first couple of years of college basketball, has looked the part of somebody who's been a vintage Wisconsin guard, a Wisconsin guard who can be one of the best players in the Big Ten. And he has that ability. In 2 NCAA tournament games last year, John Blackwell averaged 20 points and 5 rebounds. Now, all of a sudden, John Tunjay is no longer in Madison, and John Blackwell is going to take a seat at the table where he, in my opinion, will compete for all Big Ten caliber honors. If you're looking now at 2 players who will break out for Wisconsin, one is John Blackwell, the other is Nolan Winter. And that's been the way that Wisconsin's program has been under Bo Ryan and now Greg Gard. Guys, if they stay and obviously buy into the system, incrementally get better, one of the main reasons why, if not the primary reason why, Wisconsin will start the season as a preseason top 25 team is because of John Blackwell. That is our list of 15 players who will become stars during the 25-26 college basketball season. Again, it's in no particular order, but we will continue to bring you all of this great preseason content right here on Inside College Basketball Now as part of the CBS Sports Network. Want to remind you to subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on both Apple and Spotify. Remember, we want to be your Bible for the college basketball season and beyond. We are the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. I'm Jon Rothstein, and this is Inside College Basketball Now.